All right, today we are diving deep into some of the most jaw-dropping, surprising, and just epic stories from Islamic tradition. And trust me, these aren't just little historical footnotes. We're talking about incredible tales of struggle, cosmic wonder, and divine mystery. So let's get right into it.
Okay, let's kick things off with a question that honestly sounds like it's straight out of a movie script. I mean, just think about it for a second. A future prophet, the one who's destined to challenge an entire empire, actually grows up inside the palace of the very tyrant he's meant to defy. Who could that possibly be?
You guessed it, it's the Prophet Moses. The level of irony here is just unbelievable, right? The same Pharaoh who ordered all the baby boys to be killed ends up raising the one child who would lead his people right out from under his control. It's an incredible story of divine planning, and it really sets the stage for the kind of intense trials so many prophets had to face. And that brings us to our first section, because the lives of the prophets are absolutely filled with hardship you can barely even imagine. For believers, these stories aren't just tragedies. They're seen as these profound lessons in faith and patience, showing just how deep human conviction can be, even when the odds are completely stacked against you. So, imagine this. You're being chased by an angry mob, filled with so much rage that your only escape, your only hope, is to literally hide inside the trunk of a tree and just pray they don't find you. Well, this was the terrifying reality for one prophet. That prophet was Zechariah. He's also known as the father of Yahya, or John the Baptist, and for a moment he found this hiding place, a desperate last-ditch effort to survive. But unfortunately, his story doesn't end there. In just a truly horrific act, his pursuers figured out where he was. And instead of just pulling him out, they took a saw and cut right through the tree itself, killing him inside. It's such a brutal story, and it just shows the ultimate price that was paid for his message. And this theme of sacrifice and martyrdom actually continues with his own son. While in the most sacred, most vulnerable position possible, bowing down to God in prayer, another prophet met a similarly violent end. This was the Prophet Yahya, John the Baptist. His life was one of complete and total devotion. And here's a really fascinating detail from the tradition. He and the Prophet Jesus are said to be the only two prophets who never married, dedicating their entire existence to their mission. You know, these trials weren't always just physical. Sometimes they were deeply, deeply personal and emotional. I mean, can you imagine the pain of being a messenger of God and having to witness your own wife face a divine punishment right in front of you? This was the tragic story of the Prophet Lut. And to really feel the weight of this, you have to understand how utterly alone he was. For 30 years, 3 decades, he delivered his message, and not one person in his entire community believed him. In the end, even his own wife, who secretly sided with his people, was destroyed along with them as he watched. So, we've talked about the messengers. Now let's turn to the message itself. The Quran, for believers, isn't just a book of rules and stories. It's seen as a text with its own personality, its own secrets, with layers of meaning that are woven right into its structure. Just look at this table. It shows how certain chapters have these incredible nicknames based on their history or their perceived purpose. You've got al-Mulk, which is called the rescuer, because it's believed to protect the person who recites it. And then there's Taha, known as the conversion, because hearing it recited is what famously caused one of early Islam's most powerful and staunch opponents, Umar, to convert on the spot. And check this out. This is a truly amazing piece of trivia. Out of all 114 chapters in the Quran, just one of them has this unique quality. The chapter al-Mujadilah, which means the pleading woman, mentions the name of God, Allah, in every single verse. It's a pretty incredible feature of the text's composition. Okay, so now let's zoom way, way out, from the text on a page to the sheer cosmic scale of the unseen world. Islamic tradition gives us these really vivid pictures of the realms beyond what we can see, realms of angels, of heaven, and of hell. So when you think of an angel, what pops into your head? Probably something human-sized with a couple of wings, right? Well, tradition describes the chief of all angels, Gabriel, the very one who delivered the Quran, on a scale that our minds can barely even process. The number given is 600. 600 wings. Now, this isn't meant to be some kind of literal anatomical drawing. The point is to give you a sense of power and majesty and a cosmic scale that is just completely beyond anything we know here on Earth.
The tradition also lays out these really specific, contrasting details about the two final destinations. So on one hand, you have heaven, or Jannah. It's guarded by an angel named Ridwan, and it has 8 gates. Then, in stark contrast, you have hell, Jahannam, guarded by an angel named Malik with 7 gates. They even specify the first meal for those who enter paradise, a piece of a whale's liver, which is meant to symbolize a kind of bounty that we can't even comprehend. And what's life actually like in paradise? Well, according to tradition, everyone there is eternally 33 years old. You're frozen in the prime of life, never getting older, never getting sick. It's a state of perfect, endless vitality. But it's not always just a simple choice between heaven and hell. There's this other, really fascinating concept called al-Araf, or the heights. This is described as a place for people whose good deeds and bad deeds are perfectly balanced. They're in this sort of limbo, where they can see the joys of heaven and the torments of hell, waiting until eventually they're let into heaven through God's mercy. Okay, for our final section, we're going to do something fun. Let's look at the bookends of all creation. This is going to be a quick, rapid-fire round of some of the most important firsts and one absolutely staggering last that wraps up the entire cosmic story. So let's run through some of these cosmic firsts. What's really cool is how many of these key moments started in the angelic realm, before humans were even in the picture. The first ever call to prayer? That was the angel Gabriel, in heaven. The first to circle the Kaaba? The angels. And back on Earth, tradition even says the very first human to ever ride a horse was the Prophet Ishmael. And that leads us to the ultimate question. Think about it. After every single human being, every animal, every plant, after even all the other angels are gone on the final day, when everything in creation has ended, who is the very last one standing? And the answer is just so powerful. It's the angel of death himself, the very being whose entire job was to take the soul of every living thing, is, at the very end, the last one to have his own soul taken by God. It brings the story of creation to this final, silent close, right before the resurrection. What a truly incredible thought to end on.